Hi, this is Nick Baisley from Film Snobbery. I'm here tonight with Mary Mazzio from 1098, the documentary. She's a local documentarian, actually a filmmaker here in Massachusetts, specifically Wellesley, where your production company, 50 Eggs, is located. You have a huge event here. You got a red carpet going on. You've got lots of people.
It's been fantastic. You know, the president of Babson, Len Schlesinger, rolled out the red carpet. Carol Hacker, Jamie Wist, popcorn. They got a popcorn machine, champagne, dessert. It's fantastic.
As a critic, you've spoiled me for other screenings, just to let you know.
Fantastic. We like that.
I've never been to Babson College before. Beautiful place. Beautiful place. We're here at the Night Hall.
Yes, exactly. And they wanted to hold it at Night Hall because, A, it could accommodate so many people, and you could serve hors d'oeuvres. And so joining us tonight are Whit Grosbeck, the owner of the Celtics, David Fialco, who founded General Catalyst, and there are other notable glitterati's walking around. And we're so delighted. It's really exciting to have an event right here. It's all about entrepreneurship and teaching inner city kids how to become entrepreneurs and what do they learn in that process that changes their lives. And Babson College could not be a more suitable place to have that discussion.
I absolutely agree. And another reason why you actually even came to my attention as a connoisseur of independent film is that you've done something that no one else, to my knowledge, has been able to do. Is you've kind of circumvented a lot of the distribution system, and you've kind of gone and did it yourself and made a deal with AMC. Right. Want to elaborate a little bit on how that happened?
Yeah, so I had been haggling, frankly, with Tom Bernard at Sony Picture Classics. I stuck to him like white on rice, like a cheap suit or a bad bride or whatever the metaphor is. And we had this discussion for 6 months, and I said, you need to do this. This is an unbelievable topic and content, and it's important. And he said, so basically we had this discussion for 6 months, and towards the end he's like, I don't know if I can pack them into theaters. And I said, just have a limited release. And he said, that's not how we do business here at Sony Picture Classics. So when it became apparent to me that we couldn't get a really top shelf distributor, I said, uh-oh. I wanted it to do something other than go straight to television. Television is wonderful, but people take you really seriously when you're in theaters. And so I said, okay, I got to work the Rolodex. A friend of a friend put me in touch with Bob Lenahan, who is the president of programming at AMC Theaters, and he said, funny you should call. And he said, send me the movie. He didn't take 6 months, right, to mull it over. Called me back the next day and said, I want to do something with this. This is really special. He said, 30% of our clientele is Hispanic, 21% is African American. We so rarely have content that's uplifting and inspiring and aspirational for our guests and communities. He said, we want to do something with this, with this project. And he said, but are you willing to do an exclusive deal? And I'm like, oh, I'll think about it. Let me get back to you. Of course, yes. And so he said, how would you feel about opening up in 15 cities? And we said, let's do 8. Let's open up in 8. It's a little bit more manageable. But would you consider having free screenings for students and kids? That's something that AMC rarely has done. And not only did they open up, free screenings all over the country for teachers and kids, but they put us into their best theaters nationwide. So we were in their sort of highest trafficked, upscale theaters, and then we were also in Magic Johnson theaters and in urban theaters. So for us, it was such a wonderful opportunity with a partner who clearly valued the content. And Nick, that independent film, the market for it has imploded. All of these specialty distributors have gone out of business. And a friend of mine who used to run Focus Features, he called me up and he said, you wouldn't believe what they're paying for stuff coming back from Cannes. And I said, what are they paying? He said, distributors are picking up unbelievable content for almost nothing. People aren't getting their film seen. And I said, all right, what's wrong with that calculus? You give up all your rights for nothing, for the pleasure of having, a distributor maybe put it out there, maybe put money behind it, maybe do nothing, maybe shelve it. So we cast our lot with AMC, and it's unprecedented. It's crazy that it was unprecedented. as far as I was concerned, it was just working the Rolodex.
It seems like it actually makes sense if you think about it. I mean, why wouldn't more independent filmmakers kind of go around the middleman of the distributor and just get their films directly out there? And I think it's just that working in the old business model that no one wants to kind of change because it's always worked in the past type of deal.
Right, and I'm not an art. I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself like a contractor, right? You build a house, right? I get people around me that are throwing the hammers, that do unbelievable finish work. I surround myself with really excellent people. And yeah, you have to have the vision, but other than that, okay, we got to sell the house, right? Nobody comes to look at the house. You spent all this money for what? So we also were able, fortunately, we have another partner that we're so excited about. We signed a deal with BET and the Viacom family for broadcast and the possibility of a series to be developed out of the film. So it's really exciting. And to have your film be, so the film also premiered at the Smithsonian. Deputy Secretary of Commerce introduced the film. CEO of AMC Theaters, Jerry Lopez, introduced the film. All these guys, Chris Gardner, who is profiled in The Pursuit of Happiness, introduced the film. Chairman of Visa introduced the film. And to have that level of administrators, administration officials, education, policymakers, as a filmmaker, there's nothing sort of more exciting. So you get, we have a film that speaks to kids, but for policymakers and adults and people who are in positions where they can actually help these kids, I mean, as a filmmaker, you can't ask for anything more.
No, and it's a good validation too of all the hard work I'm sure that you put into making the film. Now, speaking of hard work, you actually have a very storied career of Olympic rower, from what I hear. You've worked also
Never say never. Never take no for an answer, my friends.
Never. Also, you've worked in law as well. How the heck did you end up in filmmaking?
So I was an athlete, right? You mentioned I went to the Olympics, and when I came back, I said to my husband, I said, I am blessed. So much of what I've been able to accomplish has been on the backs of others. I put myself through law school and college, but I had people helping me along the way. I had people helping me, become a lawyer, go, at a law firm. I mean, I stood on the backs of many, many people. And I said to my husband, I said, okay, I got to do something. I have to do something meaningful. I have to do something to give back in some way. And so at the time, I thought it's either going to be politics or through film. Like, how do you create social change? And I thought at the time, politics, the invasion of your personal life, all these jokers in Washington. I said, oh my God, I have a few skeletons in my closet. Now looking back, I was like, I'm such a choir girl compared to a lot of these bozos, but I didn't know that at the time. So I said, okay, film it is. And
yeah, I mean,
at the time, actually, Nick, I started writing. I was a writer first, and I was writing these screenplays that were bouncing around Hollywood, and I really initially focused on women, because every time I went to the movies, I didn't see a single woman that I knew that looked like a friend of mine, that looked like somebody that you might bump into in the shopping market, right? Like, everybody was two-dimensional, beautiful, blonde, leggy. And I was like, where are the women with the big thighs, right? Ooh, there's a moth on you. Where are the women that are irritatingly funny or opinionated or, And so I started writing screenplays about strong women that were actually bouncing around Hollywood. And I was having these meetings. Would you come out to Paramount? Yeah, I'll come out to Paramount. And you're on the lot, and you're like, oh yeah. And you think, I had no idea there were like 600,000 other people had been on the lot pitching their screenplays, right into the, and they give you a really big smile, and they say, you're such a talented writer. And I had no idea right in the trash can, right? No idea. So I'm like, oh, I'm so close. But after a couple years, I remember a production company a studio called and said, oh, we're thinking of developing your film. And again, nobody bought a frickin' thing. And I said, well, you know what? The mountain's not going to move to Muhammad. Muhammad better move to the mountain. And that's what really, that was my first documentary, where I never intended to make documentaries. But I made a short for film school. And the class was like, ooh, this is really interesting. And I thought, okay, I'm onto something here. I have to tell this story. And it never left me. So I had intended to be, sit in some chair and wear leather jackets and yell cut and have all these actors and actresses, doing what I told them. Yeah, no. No, not at all.
So you've gone ahead
I'm the
and
proletariat, right? I'm the people's filmmaker.
you're an indie filmmaker. That's exactly how it goes. And I'm glad I got you now, because it sounds like this is going to be the harder, the easier time to get a hold of you, because from what I'm understanding, you're kind of going and making a lot of deals and stuff like that. And I think that that's a good story, not only for that's helping the people. You're setting a good example for the people in your documentary, obviously, by moving forward.
Right.
And you're, like you said, it's either politics or filmmaking, because politics sets the policies, filmmaking shines a light on that.
That's exactly right.
So why, first of all, are you still here in Massachusetts when the business, technically, as they say, is over there?
So I couldn't live in LA. I'm not cool. I'm not hip. I'm not blonde. I don't have, size 2 legs. And I always felt that, honestly, to be a documentary filmmaker, you need passion, you need chutzpah, you need to figure out access to capital that doesn't have to be in LA. And I think if you're in the feature film business, you kind of have to be in LA or New York, but not necessarily. I mean, the community here in Boston, you have, all kinds of facilities that are making ads, for Volkswagen. And so I sort of said, well, there's an unbelievably talented community where they're out. My shooter shot the Larry Bird McDonald's commercial, right? My composer composes for Mercedes-Benz and did a Julia Stiles movie. So you assemble a team around you that is really high quality, and you can be anywhere making documentary films.
Do you think that would translate to film in general, or do you think that that's mostly a documentary niche?
I think it's a documentary niche. I think it's probably an animation niche. You don't have to be in Hollywood. I think, though, for talented actors and actresses, you've got to be where they are. And that can be New York. I mean, Malkovich is here. You've got the guy that shot, Snow Falling on Cedars, or I think that's the movie. He lives on the Cape. So there are pockets of Hollywood. There are Hollywood editors that are around, but for the most part, they're in New York or LA. And I think that's a reality. So the concentration of talent and resources, I mean, we had to blow up to 35 when we struck our deal with AMC. We had to use Deluxe in LA. Right. Or we could have used a lab in New York. But so even as a Boston-based filmmaker, we are using people all over the country.
What was your pitch to people to get them behind you as you were making your films, specifically 1098, which is screening here now at the Babson College here in Wellesley, Massachusetts? No. How did you kind of get those people behind you? Was it a lot of just connections you had personally, or did you? Your team, yeah.
This is my 5th film. And so I have built up a team really since day one. We've had minor modifications, from project to project, but by and large, our still photographer, so my DP shot the Larry Bird McDonald's commercial, right? So this is our 3rd project together. My still photographer shoots for Vogue. He shoots for Vanity Fair. I mean, you can't get quality that's frankly any higher, than that. He's a good friend of mine, right? And so he comes and he does work like this because it's meaningful and it's got soul and it's got heart. And so people that work on my projects, it's not about the money, right? Because they can go make their money when they're working on ads for Gillette and, Palmolive. It's psychic reward, right?
Speaking of the people who have soul and have personality and all these, the people that are in your movie, where did you find your subjects? From the little bit that I saw tonight, I will be screening the rest of it very shortly. From what I saw a little bit tonight, the characters, but the people that you found are very rich, very diverse, come from a wide variety of backgrounds. How did you I'm sure you had to narrow it down to the people.
I love these kids. I mean, I was going to follow 6 kids, and I started going from competition to competition, and we ended up following 20. For our DVD extras, 1098.com, my friends, 1098.com. You can pre-order for a 15% discount because we're not shipping till January.
Belated Christmas gift.
So where was I going with that train of thought, Nick?
We were going with you had to narrow it down.
These kids.
The kids.
I love them. I mean, I would have followed all 24,000 that entered this competition if I could. I mean, every human has a story. And so I looked for kids that I thought were going to win. I looked for kids that I thought were compelling, that had rich diversity in terms of who and what made up the inner city. And part of it was just my own sensibilities, you know. Or is a kid articulate? Okay, well, if they're not articulate, do they have a compelling story? And so that really drove the decision.
As an independent filmmaker, you know, you're making these films now, these documentaries. Do you think that you might ever transition to dramatic features?
I have a couple scripts that I would love to make. The metrics of, you know, a feature film and then making money back are really daunting. Particularly in this market, it's harder and harder and harder to get people to go into the theater. Right? People don't go en masse. I mean, they'll go for specialty films like Transformers or Paranormal. But I have a couple ideas of some feature films that, if given the opportunity, I would love to write and direct. But that's a whole other challenge, because you've got to go to where the talent is, and that would be your actors and actresses. So I think about it from time to time, but I think my core competency is documentaries, because for me, it's all about social change and how do you create that. And for me, I've been able to find a way to do that with documentaries in a way where they can inspire, especially kids. And I think that's really, you know, for me, particularly with this movie, I mean, we cut it in such a way, it's fast, we shot on film, it's beautiful, and the critics, especially those women critics of color, critics that like that kind of content. There's a lot of music. It's almost wall-to-wall music. Younger critics loved it. Some of the older critics, generally white, I think we're looking for an old school kind of documentary, and this is not your dad's documentary. This is not your mother's documentary. This is a documentary. Kids have the attention span of puppies, and if you don't have a shot if you have a shot that's lingering more than 10 or 15 seconds, you've lost anybody under the age of 20. And I think many critics are looking for a certain kind of content, a certain kind of bleakness, a certain kind of pace kids won't put up with. So we cut this, and fortunately, with the feedback we're getting, with the reviews that we're getting, especially from kids, to ask a teenager to sit through 84 minutes of a documentary, you're asking them for a lot, and you have to deliver in return. And I think we hit that nail on the head. So not every critic is going to love it, but we're moving the people that we sought to speak to.
One final question for this evening, if that's okay. You seem to have a sense of something that a lot of independent artists seem to have a little bit of a problem with, and that's you seem to have a very strong business side when it comes to making your films. And do you feel that, first of all, are you the one who's really more so involved, or do you have a producer that also helps you with a lot of the business decisions of what happens with your films? Or do you have any, I would say, even advice for filmmakers on who are making these films?
I would. I'm fortunate. I have a number of advisors. I do make those decisions. I also had I had a legal background, so I was working with companies, and that experience is so invaluable, because you have to look at this as a commodity. You can't look at this as art. You have to say, you know, I've spent so much time and effort and sweat and blood to make this. But again, if nobody's going to go see it, if you don't have a strategy, who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? And what are you trying to say? And if you don't have that elevator speech, you can't raise money, you can't get press, you can't get anybody to come out and see it. So whenever I make a film, I'm like, what's the strategy? What's the 2-minute, actually 20-second elevator speech? Because oftentimes I only have 20 seconds. Whether it's getting celebrities to participate, you know, you get them on the cell phone, you have 10 seconds to make an impression.
Just say, what's your log line? That's all I want to know.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, Mary Mazzio, I want to say it right. Mary Mazzio, thank you for speaking with us tonight at the Babson College here in Wellesley. The movie is 1098.
1098, baby.
You can go see it.
1098.
1098. You can go see it over at 1098.com.
You can see, yes, you can pre-order the film. You can see where we're going. We're going to be on television next year. You can join our fan page, Facebook.com/1098, TEN 9EIGHT. So.
And if you want to see what else is going on over at 50 Eggs, you can go to 50eggs.com.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. Yeah, you did.
So thank you, everyone. This is Nick Baisley from Film Snobbery. There she is. It's a great flick. Go out and see it.
Thank you, my friends.
Thank you.
Take care.